One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What are these? These are 6 locations which transmit radio signals which can be received by watches such as this G Shock Mudmaster, this G Shock Mudman, and this G Shock Rangeman. I'm inviting you to come on a fascinating adventure with me to understand a bit more about these different stations, how they affect your watches. We're going to learn some history, a bit of geography, maybe even a bit of physics. And at the end of the video, I'm hoping that whenever you see multiband 6 pop up on one of your watches, like here, and like here, you know exactly what it means and how you should manage your watch accordingly. I've really enjoyed making this video. I've literally traveled around the world, albeit on Google Earth, and you'll see that later on in the video. But now I do recommend you go and brew a stiff cup of coffee, get a comfy seat and sit down, because there's quite a lot to take on here, but I promise you will learn something from it. And guys, if you enjoyed these videos where I go in depth on technical G-Shock stuff and also the training and fitness side of things, please subscribe, like the video, and you'll know when more are coming. So let's start at the beginning. What exactly is multiband 6? It basically runs off the principle of atomic timekeeping. It's a way in which watches and clocks with the appropriate antennae in them can receive signals from radio transmission stations. If you're in range of these transmission stations, you'll be able to align to atomic time. It's obviously not available all over the world, and you will primarily be able to receive multiband 6 if you're within about 1,500 kilometers of each of these stations, although it's stronger within about 500 kilometers, and you will start to see reduced strength of signal outside of that zone. The 6 locations at a high level are Anthorn in the UK, United Kingdom, West Coast in Cumbria. The call sign of their transmission signal is MSF. The second is Mainflingen in Germany. The call sign is DCF77. Henan in China has a transmission station with the call sign BPC. In Japan, you have 2 transmission stations. One is Kaishu and one is Fukushima. Both have the call sign JJY. And Fort Collins, Colorado, United States of America, call sign WWVB. To give you a very rough indication of the range of these radio signals, from the UK, you'd expect about 500 kilometers from Anthorn to get a very strong signal. So that would be actually roughly about the size of the UK, like this. If you were in Mainflingen, Germany, it would be roughly the same size. There's even a bit of overlap there. Same for Henan in China. And the 2 Japanese stations as well. Again, strong effective range is roughly 500-600 kilometers. However, these transmission stations do have further reach than those 500-600 kilometers. However, once you get past that stronger signal, you will notice that the capability of your watch to receive the signal does diminish somewhat. You're more likely to get interference from things like metal objects and buildings and natural undulations. However, 3,000 kilometers from Fort Collins does take the potential range of the transmissions right up here to roughly touching towards Alaska, definitely into Canada. The wider, yet potentially less strong range of the UK Anthorn transmission station is about 1,500 kilometers, which means that it can reach the tip of Spain, hits a lot of France, overlaps with the German covered transmissions, goes into the southern tip of Norway and around here. German station, similar, about 1,500 kilometers around here. You will see that it'll reach down into Italy, maybe even touch the Ukraine and parts of Sweden. Henan, the Chinese station, is similar. You'll expect about 1,500 kilometers range, maybe not so strong. Kyushu, Japan, same. And finally, Fukushima, similar. This is obviously very rough, and there's much more accurate data available online. But I wanted to make my own video and show on a physical globe how this works and what kind of regions can expect to receive multiband 6, either in a strong fashion or weaker. And I remind you, if you sit within these weaker zones, that's when you have to do a bit more to make sure that the signal is received. You want to keep your watch away from metal objects, closer to the window. I know for a fact that with this Rangeman, the antenna is in the 12 o'clock position on the face. Therefore, if I was expecting to receive, I would want to put that part of the watch facing towards the antenna at a window. It's recommended that the watches are put near a window anyway, irrespective of how close you are to these transmission stations. So I think we can summarize here that if you're in the United States of America, much of Canada, Mexico, Western Europe, Southeast China, and all of Japan, you would likely to have a fair chance of receiving the transmission to receive multiband 6 information. One more useful point is that it's generally understood that watchers will receive the transmissions better at night. I'm not entirely sure what the science is behind that, but you're more likely to get a good signal and it to be successfully received at night than during the day. Perhaps that's one of the reasons why when you set your G Shock to automatically receive signals from multiband 6, it will do it between the hours of midnight and 5 a.m. It actually runs a cycle of 5 to 6 times to receive that data in between midnight and 5 a.m. So the physics or the science behind this. Atomic time is set by a means far too complicated for me to understand in detail. But put very simply, it measures the electromagnetic signal that emits from electrons and atoms, and essentially means the accuracy of the time is perpetually perfect from virtually any perspective. Atomic clock inaccuracy is estimated to be 1 second per 100 million years. So you can see that if your watch is aligning to these magical beacons here, you're not going to suffer from inaccurate timing, that's for sure. Here's a little interesting fact I'll throw in. Universal Coordinated Time, UTC, and atomic time are not perfectly aligned. Currently, atomic time is about 25 seconds ahead of UTC. Again, I'm not going to try and explain how or why, but you never know, you might get that question in a pub quiz. Guides for these G-Shock watches suggest that it can take 2 to 10 minutes to receive the signal, and sometimes in certain conditions up to 20 minutes. Again, probably relating to how close you are to the transmission station, and if you're in an area of natural undulations or there's big buildings surrounding, or you leave the watch not too close to a window. Also, it's worth covering that it's not just Casio G-Shocks that use these transmission stations to calibrate to the atomic time. You also have the likes of the Casio Wave Scepters, the Citizen Eco Drives can do it, Youngen's Max Bill Mega can do it, Seiko Prospex Radio Sync. So it's not by any means only G-Shocks that do this. Obviously G-Shocks are one of the more mainstream watches that do boast that capability in many of its models. So now we're going to take a trip around the world. We're going to dive into Google Earth and try and find each of these stations and actually have a walk around them or a sweep past them on Google Earth, which could be quite interesting. Okay guys, so let's start in Japan, the home of Casio and G-Shock. Let's find those two transmission stations. We know JJY, call sign JJY for Fukushima is somewhere called Mount Otakawa Doya. So here we go, we zoom in. Let's find our first set of transmission towers. Oh, I think we have a result already. Fantastic. Look at that. So there you go. You can obviously see the site there. There's the tower itself. Doesn't look hugely a massively populated site. Relatively sparse. Rather, it's pretty much in the... oh, here's another tower as well. I'll admit I don't know if both of these towers are involved in the transmission of the atomic time or just the one, but they have to be linked. So as you can see, we'll zoom out to look at Japan as a whole again, and then zoom back in, not too far from the coast. If I select 3D view, it'll spin around these two in a very nice fashion. That is the wonder of Google Earth. I love this thing. It lets you really live and breathe pretty much anywhere on the planet in fantastic detail. Yes, some places have got more detailed coverage than others, but it's just superb. So what we do know about this site is that it's broadcasts a 50 kilowatt signal, and it's situated about 250 meters above the ground. It was actually powered down during the Fukushima nuclear disaster, which I'm sure most of you are aware of, which happened in March 2011. But it did resume the broadcasting from April the 21st. But at that point, it didn't have any staff operating it. So that's JJY, the first one, the Japanese transmission station at Mount Otakawa Doya. And let's have a look now at the Haganeyama transmitter in the southwest in Japan. Zoom down here. So look at this, a similar kind of environment. Very sparsely populated. It doesn't look like there's a lot of activity here whatsoever. I see a vehicle. No, maybe that's a second vehicle here.
This is actually located at an elevation of 900 meters. It's a really beautiful environment that it's located in, that's for sure. You can look down onto the sea from the location of the transmitter. That would be a superb place to visit. Is that it there? Yes, I believe that is the tower up there. JJY, the second one, Mount Hagane site. Okay, now we shall hop over the East China Sea, I believe it would be, to go to China, call sign BPC, Shankui, Huan. And here we are, straight to it. Again, what appears to be a small, well, smaller than I expected it to be, tall, thin radio mast. There's not a 3D image of it, but you can see the type of environment it sits in. Lots of what look like agricultural pastures. Now, I don't have that much more information about this site, so I think it's time to shoot over to the United States of America, USA, near Fort Collins. Off we go to Colorado. And here we have it. Are those the sites? Yeah, that looks like some... Oh yeah, here you can see radio antennae. I presume that is the position where the multiband 6 is transmitted from. Okay, so you can see that there's clearly some kind of mast here with long wires. I think that's long wires. I've got absolutely no knowledge about this on a technical basis, but oh yeah, you can see. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 masts linked together, and they appear to be the transmitters for WWVB. Now, onward to the UK. Anton was actually a Fleet Air Arm station in World War II. It housed aircraft such as the beautiful Hawker Sea Fury, the Fairey Firefly, the types of aircraft which were primarily used for naval air power purposes. This crisscross pattern of landing strips is very typical of that, of the Fleet Air Arm as well. You can obviously see the infrastructure is still there from World War II, obviously not used to the same degree at all, but lots of aerial antennae, and of course something here is supporting that multiband 6 transmission. Out of interest, you can see that it spells Anthorn here on the grass. I imagine that's for navigation purposes, for aircraft flying over. And you can see it's right next to the Solway Firth. A beautiful part of the country. So here, dropped into Street View, and look back across the site. You see many radio masts. And our last stop on this trip is, of course, Germany, DCF 77. wonderful. And you can actually see there's really fantastically clear 3D imagery of this. Oh, that's really beautiful. Fantastic. Really, again, isolated in the middle of nowhere. Actually, there is a bit more of a conurbation nearby there. What great detail you can see, on this map. Right down to individual shrubs, undulations, I guess some kind of operations buildings. Whether or not they are active or not, I do not know. Obviously the tower itself is. Zoom right into the towers themselves. You can almost touch it. Isn't that remarkable? Zoom out a bit. So you see it's quite close to Frankfurt. I'll just write that up so you can see where it is on a north-south axis. And there you go. This is the site which serves the more easterly side of Europe with multiband 6. And just think there's people living what appears to be very close to it as well. It's amazing what you can see if you spend a bit of time on Google Earth. Drop into Street View. There you can see the site across that lake. Wonderful.
Okay, so here we are back at the globe, the trusty globe. Now, what you'll obviously notice is that much of the world, unfortunately, does not have coverage via multiband 6. And that's a big shame. However, all is not lost. There is actually a mechanism to artificially align your watch via multiband 6. There's mechanisms by which you can harness the transmissions coming out of these towers, particularly Fukushima in Japan. Engage your watch. Crucially, you have to set it to a time zone where it will recognize multiband 6 is available. If you do not have your watch set to a time zone where multiband 6 is available, the watch will not give you the option to sync. For example, if your watch time zone is set to somewhere in the Middle East, when you go to the receive option, it will simply not give you the option to automatically receive or to turn off receiving. It just doesn't exist. You have to set it to align to one of these areas, and then you can start to sync it manually. However, this is not the most simple process. I will leave it for a separate video if people are interested. Please drop a comment and I'll do that video for you if you wish. I've done it myself. It's really interesting, really effective, and it just takes a little bit of concentration and time to understand the process.
So guys, I hope you enjoyed that video, and remember to subscribe if you'd like more of the same. Cheers.